Hello and welcome to the official Haters Premier League Roundup Show. I'm your host, Aaron Goldstein, and today I'm joined by Lewis Byron, Japtej Gura, and Nick Callow. Sorry, did I say your name right?
Yeah.
Gura. Yeah, we're all good. It's his debut on the show. For the last two seasons, the battle between Arsenal and Manchester City has been an enthralling one in which ultimately Pep Guardiola's side have prevailed every time. There was a feeling that perhaps this would be the year, third time lucky, that Arteta's team would go on to win the league. But we're 8 games in, and with Halloween approaching, I think there's a chance, a scary chance, that the dream may already be over. Arsenal picking up their first defeat of the season with their third red card away at Bournemouth.
And gutted because we have to play again in that context, even more difficult than the previous two that we already faced this season. Playing for 65 or 68 minutes with 10 men at this level is just an impossible task. You know, it's an accident waiting to happen, not to get the points. And I cannot fault the team, you know, for their effort, the commitment, how intelligent they are to play in the way that we have to do it. There is a big moment, obviously, with 0-0 when we have a big opening, 1-against-1 situation with the keeper, and we don't manage to score. And in the other.
Okay, let's go first things first. Starting with you, Lewis. Is it a red card?
I'm 50-50. You know, I wake up this morning and I say it's a red card. At the time, I didn't think it was a red card. I can see it both ways. If I had to pick one, I'd say it's a red card. Yeah, if we're going by the letter of the law.
Okay,
I would say it's definitely a red card.
Definitely a red card.
100%.
Okay, I'll come back to that in a second. And Nick, you were at the game.
I was at the game, and when he brought out the yellow card initially, I thought, well, that's a reasonable decision, and it shouldn't have been overruled. And what people at Arsenal were saying was, look, if the referee rules the game, if he thinks it's a yellow card, it's a yellow card. We saw Howard Webb. I don't believe in the conspiracy theory, but if he had given a red card initially, I don't think Arsenal would have complained. So, on balance, yes, it was a red card.
So I'm happy you said that because that's exactly the way I think it. If he'd been given the red card initially, then it is a red card because you can't really deny the fact that Saliba is the last man and it's a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. However, you summed it up and you said I'm 50-50, and that means that there is an argument. It's not an absolute definitive, yes, it's a red card. And so this is the issue that I think a lot of people have with VAR. They are re-reffing the game. PGMOL said they weren't going to do that. Is that the biggest issue that we have in the Premier League right now? Yeah,
like it's subjective, isn't it? And VAR isn't brought in to make another subjective opinion after the ref's already done it. So yeah, I can see that argument. I just think it's with Saliba, it's as a young kid, all footballers are taught to, you know, stop the counter. You can do a little trip, a little pull, a little push, and that's what is ingrained in footballers these days. So I think it's his subconscious, just natural reaction to do that, thinking he's getting a yellow card, but he obviously didn't take into account where everyone else was on the pitch. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, again, it's VAR shouldn't really intervene there.
So, Japtej, you said hands down, it's definitely a red card.
Yeah.
What's the logic behind it? There being no debate there.
Well, I think he's clearly the last man, and there's no chance of anyone else covering it. And in terms of the VAR thing, I think VAR steps in if it's a clear and obvious error, right? So for them to step in and ask the referee to look at the monitor and, you know, consider his decision, clearly they felt it was a clear and obvious error. And I agree. I think it was no real complaints from that.
Okay, you go.
Can you say it's a clear and obvious goal scoring opportunity though, which is what the red card's given for, because he's on the halfway line?
No, but he's still in the Arsenal defensive half, and he is the last man. And Evan Nilsson would have been through on goal. You can't say it's a clear goal scoring opportunity, but he's the last man, and it would have been a clear chance on goal.
Well, also you said about the distance there, but I mean, we saw last season there was a moment when Arsenal played Bayern Munich, and I can't remember who it was running through on goal from Bayern Munich. Ben White sprinted like no one's ever seen that speed from him before. These players are professionals. They are quick enough to get back. That is subjective in terms of could he get back or not. And that's why I think that it's a bit more touch and go. And it's one of those decisions where VAR didn't really have to get involved.
Also, I think what's interesting is Arteta's comments, because with the other 2 red cards this season, he's sort of been having a bit of a complaint at the officials. With this one, after the game, he was like, we need to eradicate these issues. We can't be doing this. He was a lot more, it seemed, annoyed at his own team and the player than in the previous 2 red cards. So I think even he accepted that it was a fair red card.
I'm glad you said that, because the next question I really have to ask is: do Arsenal have a disciplinary record, or have a problem? Sorry, not record. Yes, they do have a record. Everyone's got a record. Do they have a problem, or have the decisions been a bit, let's be real, a bit of rubbish this season?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like Arsenal, you could make an argument for them being a bit too hyped up almost in every game and not taking into account the situation on the pitch. I feel like we do have a slight problem with red cards. Clearly, we've got 3 already, all easily avoidable. So you can't really say we don't have a problem with it. That's being a bit naive. If
you use the word avoidable, but 2 out of those 3 are almost nonsensical. What do you think as a neutral?
When you say nonsensical, you mean that they shouldn't have been given?
Well, I mean, we've seen them. We've seen the Declan Rice red card, and then
And
again
the
with the
Trossard
Trossard red
one,
card, whether you think the Trossard one's more logical than the Rice one. Both of those times, on the same weekends, we saw the exact same matters happen in other games and go without punishment. So, yeah. What's your opinion there, Nick?
Well, I think whataboutery is not a good argument there, Aaron. What about this team doing that? And the inconsistency is the most annoying thing in football. And I've been at all those games covering them for haters. And Mikel Arteta has pretty much been consistent, saying, "Well, look, maybe that was a red card, but what about this other guy here? You didn't book the Wolves guy in the first half. You should have sent him off." That argument is valid, but Rice did kick the ball away. It was a bookable offence. He did slow the free kick down. Trossard did kick the ball away. It's a bookable offence. And whether they let other things go or not is annoying, but it shouldn't really matter. And I think Mikel Arteta was angry on Saturday because his players lost his cool. Saliba, if he really had a cool head, a sort of Van Dijk sort of head, he thought, well, look, I could catch this guy up. Ben White's coming in there, like you said. Let's let him go. He might even score. We've got 11 guys to come back, and I won't be suspended for Liverpool. That would have been a really smart, clever decision by Saliba. But in the moment, it's like you've played. You do the instinctive thing, and that's.
Are you putting the blame there on Saliba, not Trossard, for the hospital backwards
Well,
pass?
okay. So then you go back to who do you? I don't know where the blame lies, but once you're in that situation,
you got to
it's then on you.
Then he's still got a chance to make a decision. Do I bring him down or do I just let him go? And it's hard one. But if it's drummed into you enough, which it will be now for Saliba and all those guys, hopefully for Arsenal's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a stat: the last team that won the league having 3 players sent off was Leicester.
Really?
The last time Man City had 4 players sent off for the season, they lost it, and Liverpool won the league in 2020. So it is going to cost Arsenal the title.
The difference was
one more card and they haven't got a chance.
Yeah, you're talking about 38 game seasons. We're only 8 games.
8 games, yeah.
Arsenal didn't look great before the Reds. Do you think they'd have lost with 11? The Bournemouth manager, Iraola, thought that his team were given a very fortunate advantage.
I think for sure they have things that they could have done a little bit, but it's very difficult. When you play with one man less for, 50-something minutes, they've shown before that they can do it against City, against Brighton. I think even 11 against 10 is very difficult to beat them. We had to do it by a corner routine and maybe when they are behind they have to take more risk and then it comes them.
As I said, the problems were, they were showing before the red card. What do you think was the problem with Arsenal at the weekend?
I didn't like the team we set out with. We played with Mourinho, Rice and Partey, I believe, in midfield, and none of them are really that attacking threat, and they all do similar things in the team. So they seemed like they were cramping each other's space, it looked like to me, as well as Sterling on the right. I think we obviously missed Saka massively. Even out of possession, the way he presses, it weren't the same. It weren't the same intensity, the same timing. So, and Bournemouth pressed really well. They set traps really well and we struggled to get out. Raya made a few mistakes at the back. So I just felt like they put us under pressure really early.
Yeah, I feel like even if the red hadn't come, it was veering towards maybe a draw. I feel like you said, the team setup wasn't the same. And it was sort of like everything bad was coming together. Raya's been, probably the best goalkeeper in the world this season. He wasn't great. Sterling, I mean, us Chelsea fans know how inconsistent he can be. And I saw a lot of Arsenal fans complaining with his performance. And for Saka to not be played shows you that something was obviously seriously wrong. We all know how much Arteta uses him. So I feel like it was all coming together in the wrong way anyway. But maybe you might have got a point.
Well, we will never know. and Arsenal were not playing well when Saliba was get sent off. But Sterling was making some of the best inroads down that right-hand side. He scored more goals against Bournemouth than any other player in the history of the Premier League. So given another hour on the pitch, he might have scored something. In my opinion, that was another Arteta mistake, taking him off and bringing on Kirill, who ultimately gave away the second decisive goal. So there's so many errors from an Arsenal perspective. We'll never know if they'd won. They had more chance of winning with 11, but we never know if they would have.
If you watch that game as a neutral football fan, you'd be thinking, okay, number one, do you blame the international breaks? Because Arsenal have now lost Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka to international breaks. William Saliba is his own issue. But then the question that fans on Twitter would love to get everybody thinking about is it Arteta to blame? What do you think?
I just think we can't keep blaming it on other things. Like you mentioned earlier about, we can't blame on other, comparing it to other refs in other games, other situations. We can't blame it on the international break. Every club loses players. Every club goes through it. We've got to look at ourselves sometimes. I think we set up with the wrong team. I just don't think it suited. Before the game started, I was a bit worried. So Arteta could be to blame.
Are you critiquing Arteta?
Not really. I wouldn't blame Arteta, especially if I was an Arsenal fan. I think the injury issues, and like you said about the international break, everyone has to go through that. The injuries were what they were. Arteta didn't have his best squad to pick from, and it just felt like one of those games. The problem is that there's been a red card in every game that you've dropped points in, and now with Liverpool on the weekend, if you lose that game, you're 7 points behind Liverpool, which is almost impossible to come back from. I think that's the wider issue.
Well, Manchester City have won 5 Premier Leagues in a row, and Guardiola's side are currently enjoying their longest ever unbeaten run in the Premier League. They grabbed another 3 points this weekend away at Molineux, thanks to a last gasp winner from John Stones.
Well, the moment the linesman, raise the flag, I said, at the first instant, but it's a corner, can be offside. And after viewing the situation, the moment the impact from, I would say, from John, Sa is watching perfectly the action, so
it's a Premier League game involving Manchester City. We're going to have to talk about the ref. Straight away, let's get your opinion. Should that goal have stood?
Yeah, I don't like to see goals ruled off for that. I think Bernardo Silva's been very clever. Before the ball's sort of coming in, he's give the keeper a little nudge. And then as it's coming into John Stones to head it, he's out of his vision, out of the way, in my opinion, ducks and doesn't affect the ball.
Yeah, I agree. Bernardo Silva's quite a small person as well. Like, I don't think he was really blocking his vision too much. It was definitely smart. I think the goal should have stood.
Definitely not a goal. I mean, having said that, I bet any Arsenal fan, if Arsenal scored that goal, they say that was great. Tactics by Nicolas Jova, working out how to block the keeper and being really supportive of it. But watching it and rewatching it, Bernardo Silva's sent there to do a job on the goalkeeper. He gives him a little nudge, puts him off balance. He means he can't really launch himself as well as he would have liked to save it. By the time the header comes in, he's got a clear view of it. I mean, I understand what Lewis is saying there, but really, I mean, to me, it's offside apart from the else.
You'll notice,
this non-interference. I just think the rule is not fit for purpose, and that should not be in a goal. But
you'll notice
I can
that
see why people might be in favour of it.
Last season, that was the Ben White role when Arsenal were taking corners to, really annoy, wriggle in front of the goalkeeper. And the rest of this season said they were going to change the rules on that. So, I mean, someone that disagreed with you both was definitely Wolves manager Gary O'Neill.
There's no chance that people are purposely against Wolves. I mean, if we ever get to a place there, then the whole game's in a real bad place. So there's no chance that people are doing things against Wolves on purpose, let's be clear. But is there something in the subconscious around decision-making, or of, without even knowing it, are you more likely to give it?
What do you think?
I don't think there's any bias towards Man City or even a subconscious bias. I can just see the argument for it being a fair goal.
Let's move that away from that exact goal.
Yeah.
Do you think that some teams are ref differently? A lot of fans seem to believe so.
No, I don't. I don't think there's any conscious decision to ref teams differently. I think it's just, listen, refs are human at the end of the day. So there could be situations in the game where maybe if it's 50-50, they give it one way because of a previous incident in the first half or something, or a previous incident the week before.
I mean, we'll come on to this. I think Liverpool a little bit. We'll come on to it later with the Chelsea-Liverpool game. I feel like the atmosphere of Anfield sometimes gets on top of the officials. And I think maybe in slight games, referees feel the pressure, not just Anfield. But I don't think there's a bias towards any team. And like with City, with the legal case between the Premier League and Manchester City, if anything, you think that the bias would be the other way, to not give them the decisions. So I don't think there's much in that.
No, I mean, as Gary O'Neill said, if we think the refs are biased to a team, we might as well give up if the games are fixed. Effectively, what we're saying, aren't we? The answer is no. But I do think there might be this subconscious. And you talk to players, they do say that when they're playing for big teams at home with a big crowd behind them, they seem to get the majority of decisions in their favour. And that's not just in England; it's all over Europe. Players I've spoken to, and so it's not a conscious bias, but there might be just a leaning towards, oh, this is a big decision here. Can I give it against City? It's all going to be in the news. Oh, it's safety first. It does come into referees' mind. There's no doubt about it. Players will always tell you that, and they speak to referees as well. And referees, we hear them on the the rewind show, whatever it's called, where they review the decisions and they hear the chit chat. And there is sort of balancing up now and then, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's just human nature in a way.
I spoke to a group of referees actually last week, and they were explaining that the problem that they had with VAR is re-refereeing. It's basically, I'm the referee, I'm human, I may make a mistake, and then if I make a huge mistake, someone will call me out on it. But re-refereeing the game for subjective decisions, that goal went to VAR. Obviously, the goal was still allowed. The VAR could have chalked it off, and sometimes it's very rare for the referees to not switch their opinion once it's gone to VAR. And I think that's where a lot of Manchester City fans or fans on Twitter were sort of saying, something's fishy here. Maybe Manchester City and the Premier League are trying to even out their little disagreements right now.
Do you think that, though?
Do I think that? I'd like to move on. I'd like to move on to the next topic. Look, City are unbeaten and flying, but they're not leading the league. Liverpool are. After a 2-1 win against Chelsea, Arne Slot's Liverpool sit top of the table. It feels like the question's been sort of asked for the last few weeks. Can they keep it up?
I mean, I'd say no, probably 2 weeks ago, but they're not. They are keeping it up for now, and they're looking good. They're looking a lot better than I thought it'd be. I thought it'd be a little bit of a rebuild with the new manager, but it's not been that at all, has it? They've been flying. They've adapted slightly to the slightly new system, and I think they're going to be right amongst it at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they've been so impressive. Like, they've had no drop off after losing Klopp, which is like unheard of. When you've got a manager who's been at a club for so long, you saw with Wenger and Fergie how much the manager after struggled. But even in that game against Chelsea on the weekend, Mo Salah, Curtis Jones, they were flying.
Yeah, I'm glad you said Curtis Jones. He was the match winner, but he did his job defensively as well. Arne Slot was very impressed with his centre midfielder.
He had a difficult job to control Cole Palmer, which is an incredible player in my opinion. It's so difficult to defend him because he has so many qualities. And Curtis did that really well today. He just, in my opinion, he controlled him for most parts of the game. It's almost impossible to control a player like this for 90 minutes, but he
Deserving of more game time, Curtis Jones? Maybe a slight look into the England team?
Into the England team, it's tough competition to get into that. So he'd have to get a good run of games and maintain that form over a period of time to get a shout for that. We see players like James Maddison not getting in, so that's a big ask. To get more game time, potentially, yeah, he's just, again, the competition for Liverpool, he's got to rely on injuries really to get a start in that team, but he's definitely deserving it after that performance.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll struggle on both counts, getting more game time for Liverpool and England. I think probably his best move in maybe January or the summer is a move away, because he's a brilliant player and he should be playing every week. But when you got like Szoboszlai and McAllister, he's not better than either of them. So I think it's just a tough on that.
Yeah, if he plays like that, then he has to play for Liverpool, England, and anyone in the world. Because a performance like that, where you're box to box, stopping Cole Palmer playing, creating chances, scoring chances, nearly winning 2 penalties. It's if he can sustain that level of play, then he should be staying at Liverpool. Where do you think he should go, Japters?
I don't know. I mean, maybe somewhere in like Italy. We've seen, look at McTominay this season. He was underappreciated, I think, by a lot of United fans. Now he's at Napoli, and they absolutely love him, and he's flying. So I think if Curtis Jones wants to take that next step and become an England regular, he's not going to do it by being a Liverpool substitute. So I think he should consider it.
As for Chelsea, it wasn't a capitulation by any means, and that Enzo Maresca didn't seem too disheartened to lose to England's most informed team.
I think the performance was very good. I just said that we don't like lose game, we don't like drop points, but if you have to decide the way, if you have to choose the way, probably this is the way. I think come in this stadium, I've been in this stadium many times, and see Liverpool, in their side for a long time. It's not.
Japtesh, you're our little resident Chelsea expert. Can you talk me through how you feel Chelsea played, how you feel the season's gone so far? What's next?
Yeah, I agree with Maresca. I was quite happy, even though we obviously lost. We were in it for a lot of the game, which is more than you could say about when we played Liverpool at times last season. So, and with the way that the season's gone, I'm very happy as well. I feel like we should get top four. I think at the start of the season, I would have said we should be competing for top four. But I feel like we're perhaps a bit more consistent and our squad's a bit better than Manchester United and Tottenham. So I'd like to think that we'd get top four, and we should definitely win the Conference League. So, that for a first season would be good, and definitely better than I thought it was going to go this early on.
Yeah, I mean, we're only a quarter of the way into the season, and it's only a few weeks ago when everyone was laughing at Chelsea, what a mess they were, putting memes of their squad with 100 players, 16 left backs. But this guy Maresca is a serious player, and he seems to have really sort of got his squad sorted out. Now people are saying that was Liverpool's toughest test of the season. A couple of games in the season, they said it'd be a joke. They'd been 4 or 5-0. So I think Chelsea are serious contenders. They've got a really sort of certain element of naivety about them defensively, but they're only going to get better for me as the season goes on. And you have to say they're top 4 contenders, possibly a trophy too. And Liverpool, by the way, I didn't get to say, yes, Slot is a serious guy too, and they're going to go all the way this season, whether they win it or not. Huge game for them on Sunday away to Arsenal. So
an Arsenal team without Saliba, without Ødegaard, potentially without Saka as well. You'd think with the way Liverpool are playing.
Good time for Liverpool, yeah.
Very good time for Liverpool. Let's do it. Let's go straight in again to the referees. Tosin Adarabioyo saw a yellow card for denial of a clear goal-scoring opportunity, you might say. He was the last man. Was it any different to William Saliba?
I think it was different. Obviously, it might come across as biased, but I think it was either Colwill or Gusto on the right of Adarabioyo, who was like 2 yards away maybe. And I think the referee took that into account when he gave the yellow card. And obviously, they put that to VAR as well, didn't they? So I think
VAR is not short of getting things wrong. We've seen that this season.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like that was a fair decision. And there were so many decisions in that game that were controversial. Liverpool maybe should have had another penalty. Chelsea maybe should have had a penalty. Sancho. So, and this is what I was saying earlier about the referee letting the atmosphere get on top of him. I feel like he did struggle a bit, especially in the first half. He didn't give a penalty to Salah again with Colwill, and then 2 minutes later he did give that one. And I think one of them was definitely a penalty. But I think he struggled in that game.
Yeah, I don't think that was a red. The player was covering. Like you said, I think it was Colwill, or I'm not sure who it was if it wasn't Colwill, but he was covering. To me, he was getting the ball. The day that's given as a red card, I think football's in a bad place.
So I'll agree with you, and I'm somewhat playing devil's advocate here. But you're saying he will get the ball. There's no factual evidence that he will. At the end of the day, Tosin is the last man.
So no factual evidence he'll get the ball, but there's anyone who can clearly see that picture knows he's catching up to where the ball is, regardless of whether he gets the ball or not.
But if you look at that freeze frame of when Tosin tackles or commits the foul, and you look at the exact same time for Saliba committing the foul, you will find Arsenal fans out there that could argue Ben White will come across.
Freeze frames can be massively misleading, as you've just mentioned, because Ben White was in a completely different atmosphere to where Colwill was.
Still on the pitch. I mean, it's a matter of opinion about it. We are now, the reason that this is a debate is because of in your head, you are analysing the speed of players, how they're going to get there. If Levi Colwill was per Mertesacker back in the day, you're not thinking he's getting back there.
I'm not analysing the speed, the distance. One was right next to the ball. Ben White was by the touchline where the dugouts were.
I'm not sure.
What do you think?
Well, I just think we're getting too carried away with the referee decisions, controlling games, dictating games. I mean, Arsenal, going back to them, if Gabriel Martinelli had a finish in him, they'd have been 1-0 up and probably would have won that game with or without 10 men. They could have been with 9 men maybe.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
a good team, even with 10 men, will win matches. And a good team, if they have decisions go against them, will score enough goals to win the match. I mean, the Premier League is packed with really good teams. Even Leicester and Wolves can make things difficult for the top bigger
I think
teams.
that's why as well with the Liverpool-Chelsea game, there were a lot of controversial 50-50 decisions, but because the two teams were so good and both really in the game, I don't think either manager felt aggrieved. Like Maresca was smiling, he was saying he was happy with the performance. Same with Slot, and I agree. If a team's good enough, they'll overcome these sorts of things.
Look, Chelsea have lost a little bit of room, well, a little bit of ground in the race for the top 4. Tottenham, now within a point of their London rivals. 4-1 win at home to West Ham was very welcome to relieve any pressure that Ange Postecoglou may have been feeling.
It's important for our fans, for sure, because I think these are the games they want to feel good about and win, obviously. Personally, for me, any game we win, I get equal joy out of, as I've always said. But I think, like I said, part of kind of the momentum we built in that second half came through the energy that the kind of supporters gave us. Especially after we got the second goal, you could really feel the atmosphere. And
is Dejan Kulusevski the most informed player in the Premier League right now?
Oh, that's a big shout. He's definitely up there. I'd say he's maybe most improved from his previous form, maybe last year, because I really feel like he's better in that deeper midfielder role. He's almost taken Maddison's job and he progresses with the ball really, really well. So Maddison's probably going to be slightly frustrated with himself and the fact that Kulusevski's sort of taken the spotlight.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a bit of a stretch because then you could say Brennan Johnson as well, also up there. But yeah, I mean, everything's going right for Spurs at the minute.
So Tottenham's best player or the best player in the entire...
So can you name a more informed player in the whole Premier League than Dejan Kulusevski?
What, better than Cole Palmer?
In form?
In form.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he's only had, he's got a couple of assists, a couple of goals, Kulusevski, and he's a dangerous player.
Every game he looks good.
Yeah, he does look good, but does he deliver?
Cole Palmer goes quiet at Anfield. Pathetic. I mean,
he looks good, but does he deliver?
You've mentioned putting Brennan Johnson in the equation as well. So that's attacking players from Spurs. But then we saw at Brighton, they went 2-0 up, looked like they're flying going forward. Terrible defensively. They've kept one clean sheet at home in 2024. Is that the big factor? Is that what holds Spurs back from being right up there with the elites? Yeah,
I don't think it's their defence, like their defenders. I think it's their defensive structure that holds them back. I feel like their mindset is attack before defence, and they don't really.
But that's what Ange wants. Like he's happy with that. So I don't think he'll see that as an issue. And on the Brighton game, obviously it was a total capitulation. But if they had, kept that win that they had, they would be in absolutely amazing form. I mean, they still are in very good form. But if they'd kept that win, they'd be absolutely unreal at the minute.
Look, Man United returned to winning ways as well as they came from behind to beat Brentford. The moment of controversy in that game was with Matthijs de Ligt, who was told to leave the pitch as he was Terry butchering, had blood pouring down his face, down the side of his... it was basically his face was the colour of his top. And while he's off the pitch, Brentford get a corner, bang, Ethan Pinnock scores. You'd like to think that had de Ligt been on the pitch, that's exactly where he would have been stood. So is there a cause for complaining?
No. You have to adapt to different things that go on in the game. Like we said earlier, you can't always blame external factors for things going wrong in the game. He's off the pitch. How do you deal with that? You can't say he would have been there. You have to then change how you're going to set up to defend the corner. And they didn't obviously do that well enough.
And another thing that's been really increasingly evident over the last few weeks is Marcus Rashford's return to form. He looked really, really, really good. Would you like to see him break into the England team again?
That is far too early shout, in my opinion. Return to form is he's had what, 2 decent games? Is it now?
Are you taking that on goals, assists, and statistics, or actual bit of how
Just
he's
watching
looked?
him. Yeah, just what I've up until last weekend, I think he's looked very poor, and I think his body language looks poor. I wouldn't want to see him play for England at the moment in the way he's playing.
I agree. I feel like he's just too inconsistent in performances, body language. He has a great season, then a terrible season, great season, terrible season. This season, he's had a terrible first few games and then a great last 3-4 games. So I feel like he needs to show it for at least 4 or 5 months for me to be getting back in the England squad.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to be showing that form when Thomas Tuchel comes in January. I think his first match is in March. I think England is a better place when Marcus Rashford's in the squad. I think he's just a good presence. He's got a great big match mentality. If he can get a penalty or a shootout, I'd like to see him taking a penalty. And yes, he has had his dips and his too many downs for his liking and anyone's liking, really. But I really enjoy seeing him play well, and I'm hoping he will keep that up and get back to England form, because I think England is a better team squad environment with Rashford involved.
Nick, let's stick with you. Are there any burning questions, comments that are coming through that we can address here?
Well, there's a few. I mean, I must also draw people's attention to the polls that have been running on the YouTube chat. We had one earlier which asked the question you were asking earlier, whether Saliba should have been sent off. 33% said yes, and 66% said no. The
So
current
60% of Arsenal fans.
well, even they might be just neutral football fans.
My dad's a Tottenham fan.
Very
I didn't think it was a red.
Yeah. So, and there you go. So
Shout out Malcolm.
let's not be too cynical about Barcelona. But there is a poll going on at the moment as well as to whether people think that referees are biased to big teams, not to City. And that's I'll update you with the answers and the results of that later. In terms of the comments coming in, if you allow me to just scroll over there, Only Soccer, which I doubt was his name, his proper name. It was asking where Chelsea finished the season. Only Soccer says, I think Chelsea may complete around 5th. But Liverpool won't win it.
Oof. Okay. Fine. We'll get your comments in now. We're just going to round up the other matches from the weekend, and then we'll come back to your questions and comments right before we wrap up. Aston Villa are still showing that they are the real deal. A 3-1 win at the Cottage for Unai Emery's side. It's top 4. Theirs to lose.
Theirs to lose is strong. There's probably 4 or 5 teams in it now. Brighton, Villa, you've got Chelsea and Tottenham. So, yeah, I think they're going to be right amongst it. They don't look like they're slowing down either, really, with their form. They're looking good. Fulham's a tough place to go and beat, a tough team to beat. So, yeah, I think they'll be in and around it.
Japtesh, you've got to put all your money on it right now. Who's that team that takes the 4th spot behind Arsenal, Man City and Liverpool?
I think Chelsea. I think with Villa, the issue they'll have, and it's a good one, the way that they started that Champions League campaign, beating Bayern, they'll now be thinking we can progress. So I think they'll go a lot into that boat and then be left a bit short in the Prem.
Right, that's sort of knocked the steam out of me a bit, because I was going to say Villa. Villa are the 4th best team that I've seen, and I think they'll sustain it. And
Do you think they're better than Chelsea as well? Given that Chelsea have Chelsea have the Conference League and they've got the Champions League, they'll be Chelsea can rotate. Villa can't really.
How far have Chelsea fallen? If you're arguing that Villa have harder games, they might fall off.
No, but it's a fact.
Villa are a more solid club at the moment in terms of the way they're playing week in, week out. Chelsea, they're filtering it down and they're getting there, but I still think Villa.
I mean, don't take offence. I got it wrong last season. I said Tottenham definitely going to finish top 4, and I got that wrong. So I might be wrong about Villa. But from what I've seen with my own eyes in the flesh, playing football on the grass, Villa are the 4th best team.
Fair enough.
I have not seen Chelsea play yet in the fantasy season, so
he's only seen 4 teams play.
You actually mentioned Brighton. They look really good as well. An impressive 1-0 away win at Newcastle. Their goal scorer and star of the season so far was Danny Welbeck, but he went off on a stretcher, which obviously we wish him well. But it made me think, are we finally going to see Evan Ferguson break into this Brighton team and shine the way that everybody was raving about him doing maybe a year or 2 ago?
Yeah, first of all, that's a shame to hear about Welbeck, because he's had struggled with injuries a lot, hasn't he? And he's finally got over him for a period of time, and he's got back into good form. Evan Ferguson, he sort of went quiet after that spell we had, so it'd be good to see him back and see if he can replicate what he'd done in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. It depends how long he's going to get, because I think João Pedro is coming back quite soon from injury as well. So hopefully for Ferguson, he can get some decent game time.
A few weeks ago, Lewis, you were sat right there and you were saying how rubbish Ipswich's defence looked. And I think it's fair to say that rubbish is too nice to describe how they were against Everton. If you had to give a percentage chance of Ipswich staying up, give me a number.
5%. Yeah,
That's harsh.
I
That's
don't
harsh.
think they've got much chance. I think there's only, they haven't got much chance. I was trying to give them a pointer, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably say like 10%. I think a few weeks ago it would have been a lot higher, but Everton's recent results paired with how they were even playing at the start of the season, I think they'll now comfortable. Well, don't know how comfortable, but I think they're definitely safe.
Everton looks safe. Michael
Yeah.
Keane, that man is the king of a Premier League screamer when you don't expect it. I mean, he scored a couple of years ago against Spurs. Just flew into the top corner, but proper it wasn't even a striker's finish. It was a proper striker's finish, a Kun Aguero kind of finish, near post, walloped into that near corner, into the goalkeeper's near side. Unbelievable from Michael Keane. If Calvert-Lewin goes through a dip in form, stick him up top. If you're talking about teams that are going to go down, we had a relegation 6-pointer as Southampton faced Leicester. Southampton squandered a 2-goal lead and remained winless, losing in the last minute of the game. It was very depressing. For Southampton fans. Do you think either of those teams have enough in the tank to stay up?
Leicester have looked good in patches. So out of the two, I'd say Leicester have a better chance. Southampton are in the Ipswich category, and they have 5% chance of staying up.
I'd give them less than that.
So they should. I mean, Leicester I can see being close towards the end, having a fighting chance, but Southampton, no.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Leicester have got a better chance of fighting because they just seem to concede fewer goals. Southampton and Ipswich, maybe 5% between them, 2.5% each. They just don't look up to it. Wolves really impressed me this weekend, and they can do that against teams at home, can't they, against City? But
as you said, we're a quarter of the way through the season and they're winless.
Yeah, but it's 10 games is when you really start looking at the table. We're only on 9. So if I'm on the show next week, which I'm sure I won't be, then I'll give you more. Or maybe I'll just get in on the comments and give you my opinion from outside the studio.
Speaking of comments, anything coming through?
Well, yeah, so people are still getting upset about this. I mean, we must have quite a few Arsenal fans in here. Although Luca Talks Ball has got a question for us. He says, do you think Arsenal will beat Liverpool on Sunday?
Let's go.
No, I don't. We haven't got the players.
No chance.
Yes, I do think they've got a big chance of beating them. Home crowd. Liverpool are due a little bit of a wobble. And I think there is a chance. And Saka will probably be fit for that one. And
he's not in training today.
Would you have the same midfield with Mourinho in there?
No.
Nwaneri maybe I think should get a shout for
that. I don't think he will. I don't think Mikel Arteta thinks that Nwaneri is ready to start.
Do you not think Liverpool's too tough a test to throw him in there?
But I don't think Mourinho's. I wasn't impressed with what I saw.
You can't play 3 holding midfielders against Liverpool at home.
He's 16, right?
17, yeah.
17,
nearly 18, yeah.
I don't think he's... I don't know, maybe he could handle it, but it just feels too early for such a big game. That is because if Arsenal lose that...
If Arsenal lose that game and Ethan Nwaneri starts, Ethan Nwaneri does not take the blame.
Exactly. It's a free pass for Arteta, in my opinion.
No chance.
Yeah, it's, Wiggy P1V2, another fantastic name, says, Arsenal almost have to win. We've got another poll going on as well, by the way, which is about the bias. Is there a subconscious bias towards bigger teams? Get in there on the YouTube chat if you want to vote on that. 90% say yes, there is a subconscious. They're agreeing with Gary O'Neill at Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Fair enough. Well, that's all for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. And remember to follow Haters across all forms of social media and even check out the new membership scheme for some behind the scenes and